guys, and welcome to this episode of What Now? If you're not a subscriber of this channel, please click the subscribe button down below. Why should you subscribe to this channel? I'm new, y'all. I'm new to this. I'll get better with time. Content will get better with time. I know where I want to take the channel. Hope you'll come along for the ride. Again, I appreciate your support. Click the subscribe button. I want to talk a little bit about the backlash against the Breakfast Club with the Lil Duval comment that he made about trans women. When he was on the Breakfast Club, he mentioned, and I think it was last Friday, he mentioned that if he was in a sexual situation with somebody who was trans and they did not tell him, and he then found out about it, that person would have to die. So there was backlash against the Breakfast Club because people felt that, you know, they took it rather lightheartedly. They felt like they were, they didn't ridicule him enough or strongly enough for making those comments. Some felt that they laughed a little too easily. They laughed along with it. They didn't check them. So it's been a backlash. Some people are boycotting the Breakfast Club. And Lil Duval, after all of that happened, after his comments, he basically doubled down. Now, the Breakfast Club had Janet Mock on their show, who is a trans woman, very well-known trans woman activist, who was on the show, who was there to educate a few days before Lil Duval's presence on the show. And so these things were very close together, which also rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, because it just came across as the Breakfast Club was making fun of trans women and trans men. So Lil Duval, when he found out about this backlash, he doubled down. He made another Instagram video that basically said he's sticking to what he said. I'm paraphrasing here, but his whole thing is, if you mislead, if you do not disclose that you are a trans woman, then you should expect some type of reaction. There's been a lot of talk in the community, and a lot of the community, meaning the African American community, appears to be siding with Lil Duval and understanding where he's coming from, and very happy that he didn't back down off the comments. So here is my take on that situation. One, I think when you're not a part of the offended community, that you really should listen. You should listen to the folks who were offended so that you could try to understand why they were offended. We should understand that. We should understand that process. And for those who were offended, take the opportunity to educate before you obliterate someone who may not understand. I saw a couple of videos especially from gay men who were very emotional about what happened on the Breakfast Club. I mean, very emotional. Anger / tears, they were very emotional about what happened. And they were very emotional about these folks being referred to as transgendered. That is supposedly a negative term. You either are supposed to say trans women or trans man, because to say transgendered is a negative term. Okay, so in this moment, this is when I'm saying educate. Don't just, who knows that? Nobody knows that. Until I saw that on the video, I'm like, I'd always said that it's a transgendered person. Didn't know that that's supposed to be something now that is derogatory. So it's kind of like, we need to listen to the offended group because that's their experience, and we need to hear from them what it is that they find offensive and then not offend them. But then those who are in that group too need to understand that you need to educate some, because I think the lion's share of people would say a transgendered person and not know that now that's on a derogatory list of things to say, and you have to say either trans women or trans men. It's a lot to keep up with. I am also going to say that my position on Lil Duval, I think Lil Duval went too far when he talked about he would kill the person, because there's a lot of homicides right now in the trans community. Hopefully that's not offensive to say trans community, but there's a lot of trans women who are being killed in the trans community, and so it's not something to make light of. And with me saying that, though, I will say I do believe it is critical for people to disclose these details to whomever they're being intimate with. It is in that that person's best interest to do that, to mitigate the risk of something violent happening, because it is high potential for something violent to happen if you did not disclose what the situation was. Not saying that you deserve it, not saying by any means that's what you get, not the attitude at all, but this is just real talk. If you did not disclose that you are a trans woman to a man and he finds out later that you are after you guys have been intimate, you have to know that you are at high risk of getting hurt or killed. The Breakfast Club, they are not apologizing for what took place on their show. Charlamagne's perspective is he's not apologizing for another man's comments. He tried to say that on the show they did say to him, you can't say that because it's a hate crime, and you can't, you can't say that you're gonna kill transgenders. His word is what he was saying this morning, just saying he's not apologizing. So anybody who's waiting for him to apologize, don't hold your breath. Now, the reality is that they were giggling, they were kikiing along with the things that Lil Duval was saying. They were not offended. And that's why I go back to my first point, which is if you are not from the group that is offended, then you really need to stop and listen to what the people in that group felt in response to what was done to them, to really understand and educate yourself and not offend again. Because I do think it is really a bad thing when you are especially a part of a group that is constantly offended. People are always coming for us, right? In one form, fashion, or another. There's always something happening to us as a people from a society perspective. And we take that very seriously. We go off, we claim we're gonna boycott stuff. We'll call someone a coon in a minute. We are offended, and we let you know we're offended. We're up in arms because it's something that is happening in our community. So let it not be said that when something happens in another community that somehow we can't connect that at all. And what we're gonna do now, the Breakfast Club, is just sit back and kind of giggle, because they did take it lightly. They were not offended by Lil Duval's comments at all. And it was just clear that they weren't. They handled it wrong for the position that they're in. They handled it wrong for the platform that they're on. And so that's why they have the backlash. I think people have a right to live their life as they want to live it. People who have opinions or people who have certain views, they are also entitled to their views. But you cross the line when you offend a group of people and then you try to act as if, what's the big deal? And I do feel that's what the Breakfast Club did. In a nutshell, hey, when you're not a part of the group that's offended, pump your brakes, try to understand what happened so you don't offend. If that's what your goal is, right? For most of us, we don't want to offend you, okay? And then on the other flip side of that, with this whole situation with Lil Duval's comments, let's not make light of the fact either that if you're out here and if you are a trans woman and you are not disclosing that to a man that you're being intimate with, you are putting yourself at risk of getting hurt or murdered. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see anybody get hurt or murdered. You need to be upfront and honest about the situation. That's it for this episode of What Now? Until the next time, thank you for allowing me to have my 2 cents.